Today on NerdOut, Bloxbean. Welcome back to NerdOut, the show where we take a look at Cardano, we break it down, but we don't dumb it down. Today, I'm joined by Satya Ranjan. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yep.
He works for the Cardano Foundation, and I will let him introduce himself and what he's working on.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Andrew, for having me. And I'm Satya. I'm currently one of the core maintainer of Bloxbean projects, and I'm also a blockchain architect at Cardano Foundation, work in ecosystem engineering team. And yeah, I have around more than 20 years of experience in IT. Initial 10 years probably mostly into Java-based product development with companies like Sun Microsystem, and there I got exposure to open source development. And then later, after 2010, I was most with few banks in this part of the world, mostly spent time with Bank Julius Baer doing front-end, back-end stuff for the bank, front office or bank office application as an application architect. And from 2018, I was into consulting. I joined Pivotal, which was then acquired by VMware, mostly for the application modernization, all this cloud native cool stuff. And during that time, I got exposure to blockchain also in 2017. That was the first time I came to know about Cardano. Like everyone, most of us went through that whiteboard video. And yeah, I then got involved into some blockchain-based in my spare time, some tooling development for other blockchain in 2018, 2019, and 2021. I started actually building stuff in Cardano because we didn't have anything before that, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting to meet another person that does a lot of work in the Java space because there's not many of us on Cardano. I know my projects, I do a lot of work with Java, so that's kind of why I was really interested in having you on this show because the Rust guys get a lot of exposure and the TypeScript guys get a lot of exposure, but us Java guys don't always get to show off our stuff. So let's talk a little bit about Bloxbean. So I'm going to pull up the website here, and you can kind of talk through everything that is Bloxbean from kind of a high level.
Yes, let's quickly go through all the projects about Bloxbean. So Bloxbean basically maintains different tools, which are Cardano-specific tools, which are targeted for Java developers or developers from other JVM languages like Kotlin or Scala. The goal is to basically simplify developers' life to build on Cardano. That's the goal of every dev tool we have in the Cardano ecosystem. So if I go through this project, the very first one is the Cardano client leaf, which is a off-chain SDK, which is something like Lucid Evolution or PyCardano or Mesh.js, but it's for Java or any Kotlin or
that's
Scala.
the one I've used the most. I think I've used that one in several projects, but that's today I use it in the day-to-day of the USDM stablecoin protocol. So
yeah,
for example, where it's used is when somebody wants to burn USDM, they need to send us that USDM, and we use the wallet functionality to generate the BIP39. So every user gets their own unique address. So we kind of use it as like a temporarily custodial wallet to hold the USDM until it's time for it to be burned once a night. So like that was that's an interesting, I guess, use case I had for it, and it was very, very nice, easy to use tooling. So.
Yeah, that was great to know, right, when you mentioned in Builderfest in Vietnam, because it's really hard to know who are using these libraries, right? So in an open source world, but yeah, that's really good to know. Yeah, it's a standard off-chain SDK, but for Java developer, and it supports everything starting from your address derivation to low-level serialization to high-level transaction builder API to main token governance API. It's a full-blown supports almost everything. I think everything possible in Cardano.
And it does. No, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. So let's move over to Yasi um, and Yasi Store. Kind of what is the target audience for those tools?
Yes, so Yasi is basically a mini protocol implementation in Java. So um, yeah, I can go a little bit story behind Yasi, why it was started, because
Hmm.
in for Java application we didn't have anything initially, so we had to either use Ogmios or something like that, another component to basically read data from blockchain. And in Rust world we had Palas
Hmm.
out in sometime in 2022. So I tried to do something in Java, but to basically make it simpler for Java developer without exposing Cardano specific technology to the Java developers. So
Hmm.
Yasi, it's a simple, very lightweight library. It can be embedded in any project, and it provides some callbacks like callbacks for blocks data or transaction data. So you just listen to those callbacks, and you just get the Java object, and then do whatever you want to do with that,
Hmm.
store in the database or so. It's a stateless application, just a Java library, but it supports all kind of mini protocol, right? Chainsing, blockfetch.
Right.
Also, it supports some local queries, so you can directly query UTXO's protocol parameter directly from the data from the node. And it
Hmm.
also creates a foundation for all other projects after that, the Yasi store. So if I describe
So
Yasi
so it
store,
also can it connect to the node remotely and in the local mode, both the modes, like to the Unix socket and to the TCP/IP socket.
exactly. So it uses NETI internally,
Mhm.
and it can connect to domain socket, Unix domain socket, or
Mhm.
also a remote one. So N2C and N2N both are supported. Yes.
Excellent.
And there are if I give an example, there are some Telegram bots which is using Yasi to basically watch your address. So these are like classic use case which can be
Hmm.
built with Yasi, right? So you
Yeah,
can.
the comparable Rust library would probably be more like Aura, where you wanted to tail the blockchain or watch a particular address or things like that.
Yeah,
Is
that
that
was.
accurate?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Aura was kind of an inspiration for Yasi. I can say that. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Then I can move to Yasi Store. So
Yeah.
the idea behind Yasi Store is it's a um, so basically we have DB sync, which has
Hmm.
all the data, right? And as a DApp, if you want to have a data store, you have to basically deploy DB sync, get the data from all of the world, right? For everyone data in your database, and then you write probably few KB of data from your application, right? Which is not ideal. And we definitely have scroll in Rust world where you can actually use scroll, uh, write your own reducer and store your data. Similarly, we have
Hmm.
card. So Yasi Store is similar thing in Java, but it's the focus is mostly to simplify everything um, and the data completeness. So everything in Yasi Store is a module. So it's a modular library which can be
Hmm.
embedded in another Java application or Spring Boot application, I can say. And it provides everything, getting data from a node and up to storing it in a persistent store like Postgres, MySQL, or even H2 database, right?
Okay, so it's flexible enough to choose a different data store
Yeah.
depending on what your needs are. That's interesting. I did not know
and
that.
and 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 on top of that you can also override the storage interface, so every
Okay.
layer can be customizable. So if you want to store the data in Redis, you can also do that. And someone from the community actually tried that, and but it's not officially supported. There is a experimental version for RocksDB also where we can store
Mhm.
yeah, UTXO data. But I think RDBMS provides a lot of flexibility for the queries. So out of box, so we stick with RDBMS with these three.
Mhm.
And because we're using Java, Spring, so it's easy to support all this out of box. And also
Right.
it can, if I go a little bit down, it actually uses everything like in an event-driven way. So it gets data from the blockchain, and then publishes different events like block event,
Mm-hmm.
transaction event, and there are event processor in the Yasi store. So these events are also exposed to the application which is using Yasi as a library. So that
Okay.
means if you're building a Spring Boot application, you can actually listen to all these events and you can do your own stuff. So you can customize your storage layer, or you can also listen to those events to publish to somewhere else. So it's a highly customizable application. And
Mm-hmm.
on top of that, it also comes with few default application. There's the application called Yasi Store. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's the distribution type is Docker or the Java distribution. So it actually index everything on
Mm-hmm.
all the on-chain data. So
Right.
UTXO, metadata, whatever you want to index. Also, you can say you want to disable some module. So you don't want to index metadata. You can also disable that. So these are all modules there. And there is also a module called ledger state module, which actually calculates rewards data, governance state data. As you know, those data are not exposed through mini protocol. You have to calculate.
Mm-hmm.
And in DBSync world, DBSync doesn't calculate everything. It actually gets
Right.
everything from the node through a event, right? Because these are written in Haskell, so it's easy for them. But for us, we have to calculate everything.
Right.
And this is still in beta. But reward calculation is like matching 100%. So now we are actually working on governance. So we have a demo deployment where you can actually check the governance states are also calculated. But whatever everything is module, so you choose what to use in your application and what data you want to store in your database. So that's basically Yasi Store. I would say that data completeness wise, it's actually in same as DBSync currently. Um,
Okay. And what about cover the dev kit real quickly, and then maybe we can jump into some example code.
Yeah, so Yasi DevKit is basically using every all other projects. So it's basically if I explain it, it's a tool which helps developer to quickly create a local devnet. So typically, when you are doing development in Web2 world, you can have your own environment, where you test everything, and then you promote your build to a VM, right, where it can be tested with UAT environment and other thing. But in blockchain world, basically we test everything with public network like
Mm-hmm.
preview or people, which is not ideal, right? Let's say you
Right.
are working for an app which has some sensitive data. Do you want to really expose this data? Um, Probably not, right? This is not ideal. And in Cardano, we had this big gap, and Yasi DevKit is basically trying to fill that gap. So you can create a local devnet quickly, like within few seconds, just with one command. And then that's not enough, right? As you know, to build your application, you also need an indexer. So in this case, our indexer is Yasi Store, which is
Mm-hmm.
running with H2 database. You probably already know because you are from JVM world, but H2
Mm-hmm.
is a very lightweight
Yes.
database, so it's a file-based database. And then we also have a explorer, lightweight explorer, just so a developer focused explorer which shows the data for your own local devnet. So once you are done with the testing, you just destroy your devnet, and it's done. So we can recreate within just few seconds. We can
Very
have a quick
cool.
demo if you want, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's go ahead and pull that up. We'll let you share your screen here and kind of walk through a quick demo of using the tools.
Yeah, maybe we can start with Cardano client leaf and then probably
Okay.
go through Yasi DevKit. So in Cardano client leaf, I have few transactions here, like just to give an idea of how a transaction can be built with the library. So this is simple transfer transaction where the APIs are like declarative API. So you create a TX
Mm-hmm.
object, you define okay, pay to this receiver, and attach some metadata, and then yeah, just compose your transaction TX object and signer object and complete, and wait is basically submitted to the actual network. And this is a
Mm-hmm.
simple transfer example. And similarly, here basically you are doing two TX, like TX object, and you're composing multiple transaction inside one blockchain transaction here, like within compose. Um, and similarly, we have like mint transaction. You can say it follows the same way. You can do mint asset, and and it's if you if you see, these are like similar to what Lucid does also, right? I don't know the new Lucid evolution, but
Hmm.
the original one, so mint asset and attach metadata. So it's kind of a declarative API, and then
Right.
you
Kind of
submit.
a builder pattern where you're just kind of building the
Yeah.
transaction up. Yep.
Yeah, and I would say this is like a third generation, because we had with the initial version of a high-level API was like very limited. Then there was
Hmm.
a second version, and this is the third version. I think this one is quite flexible, and
Hmm.
this is a recommended one. And that this transaction can be posted to through Blockfrost or Ogmios or Koyas. So we have different provider from
Hmm.
which you can actually get this data, UTXO data, and then you can submit it. And there are different interface you can also implement to have your own data provider, and those are very lightweight interface and nothing special here. Like every off-chain SDK follows the same pattern. Similarly, if I go to a complex one, this is a script transaction where you
Hmm.
can, instead of TX object, you are doing script TX object, and you collect from some UTXO and then pay to some address, and done. Everything is the same way. And if I go to governance transaction, this is the same way. So you register stake address, register DRAP. It's just one line of code, and internally it does all the complex stuff for the developer. One interesting feature probably I like to show here. This is CI 57
Hmm.
blueprint support. So let's say you have this just blueprint JSON file. If you want to use it in your Java code, you can put some annotation and point to the JSON file. And when you compile, it automatically generates code for you, like datum, redeemer, and all those things. If I go to the target folder here, you can see all this generated code
Hmm.
here. These are auto.
What is it using to do that code generation?
Yeah, this is using compile time annotation. So
Okay.
these are all compile time. So there is no runtime code generation here. So you can
Okay.
actually go to the code and see what exactly it is doing. And there are converter for converting Java object to datum object. If you
Hmm.
don't use it, so you have to do it manually, which is not that difficult. But yeah, if it can be automated, I think that's also good. Yeah, this is something also being used in different projects now. Uh, yeah, so this is Cardano client leave, but maybe we can directly jump to Yasi DevKit, and we'll
Sure.
see how we can test this transaction and how quickly we can do that, right? Um,
Sure.
so in Yasi DevKit, if you go to the Yasi DevKit documentation site, it can be installed as a Docker distribution, or you can also do the native distribution also. But
Hmm.
for this demo, let's go through the Docker distribution because it has everything bundled together. So I've already downloaded Yasi DevKit here, but you can also install it as a global tool where you just have to do devkit and start. Um, but in this case, I'll just do devkit and start. So it gives you a prompt, but you can also directly start i- in a non-interactive way also. So if I do create node minus O and start, so what it does basically, it creates a local Cardano node,
Hmm.
creates some test accounts, top up those test account with some test ADA,
Hmm.
um, 10K ADA, I think, for each address, and then it starts Yasi Store as an indexer, and that's it. And if you want to start Ogmios and Coupa, you can also do that. We can go through it. And then if I open my browser, let me, if I go here, this is Explorer, which is
Hmm.
for our DevNet, right? And if you see the block time is 1 second. So
Right.
in the current release version, it's 1 second block time is the minimum. But in the next version, we can actually bring down it to like millisecond also. That's something which is coming in the next version. So now if I go to this my ID, and if I check here, the backend service is basically pointing to localhost 8080. This is my indexer URL, which is running now with DevKit. And if I try to run this simple transfers, you can see now it's just immediately done. So within few seconds, all 2 transactions are done. If I go here, I can see these are my transactions, which I just did. And similarly, if I let's take a complex one, the script transaction here, and if I try to run this, so basically it's trying to lock and unlock. The classic hello world example. And if I go to the browser, and so you can see the last one should be the unlock transaction. You can see my datum here to unlock and the contract. So the UI is kind of Cardano scan, but it's like the data required by the developer. Not everything is there, but yeah, whatever minimal data required. So once you do that, let's say we want to top up some address here, you can also do that. Top up, there's a top up command here. So if you do top up, let's say take this address and some data, it's done. In also support export, it's also provide some admin endpoint through which you can do all these top ups. So this can be integrated with your CI workflow, because Yasi Devkit also provides an NPM distribution, so which is quite easy. So it can quickly bring a local devnet with Yasi Store, and then you can test everything, and it will bring down everything in GitHub Action. So and once you're done, you can just do reset. So it will just wipe out everything and start the new thing again. Yeah. So that's Yasi Devkit and Cardano client lib. Yeah, in brief. Yeah.
That's amazing. No, I really like that we've had a chance to talk to you on the show. Not everybody knows these tools exist, and they really do help for enterprise Java people, Kotlin people, Scala people that want to get into Cardano. And maybe they're scared by some of the existing tooling that we have. But this is great stuff. Somebody could really get up to speed very, very fast, and get involved with building a Cardano dApp using these tools. So thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for your work at the Cardano Foundation. And do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to share with the community?
Yeah, just want to mention one thing. The Yasi Devkit is not only for Java developers. It's been used by other ecosystem, like it is compatible with Lucid Evaluation, because the API endpoints are Bloxbean compatible. So PyCardano can work with it. So yeah, it's not only Java.
Right. So if you want to build, it's just a nice, good environment for like spin up, test environment, test things quickly. It doesn't require the Java stuff. Yep. Good point. Okay. Thank you for being on the show. And with that, nerd out.